Good evening, everyone, and welcome to round number 3 of the League of Europe 4th Division 2. My name is Jake. I'll take you guys through this as always, and joined alongside me as always, Mr. Ada Carter, commentalist. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Not too bad, thank you very much for having me once again in the commentary booth for Division 2. And yeah, looking forward to this race, third round of the season, of course. We've had two different winners in the first two races, and we come into a bit of a different format tonight for the first time in League of Europe. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, certainly I'm looking forward to it. I'm just going to see how this is going to go down as well. Of course, if you guys did miss it last week, it was a bit of a wet race, but it was actually quite an enjoyable wet race for a change around Imola. So I will quickly just run you through the championship standings whilst we are just getting loaded into the lobby for, as I said, for round number 3. And interestingly enough, it's a bit of a different format. So this one's actually a sprint race for this race as well. So we're going to have one shot qualifying and then a 50% sprint race and a 50% actual race. So at least then it kind of fits within the time frame of what everybody else has done as well. But as I said, through the standings for yourself, at the top of them is MLE Creco in that Mercedes with 37 points, taking a win last week at Imola. Luke 05 and is now in second, obviously dropping down from when he finished 8th in Imola last week. Larkin is in third, but not here for this evening, so it's a bit more open for a few other people to try and jump up ahead of him. Rick and Killer Blue spring to mind as Rick's in 4th with 24, Killer Blue in 5th with 18 points. Darry and Slash are tied in 6th and 7th with 16 points. Ben JS in 8th with 12. Lix is in 9th with 8 points, and Evans rounding out the top 10 with 7 points. And of course, being a reserve as well makes it a little bit more interesting. So hopefully, he does get a full-time seat soon. But as I said, just explaining it with the sprint race. Yeah, we're going to be going into one-shot qualifying very, very soon. Once everyone has picked their setups and stuff like that, then it will just kick it off straight underway. And then, as I said, 10-lap race for the 50% sprint race, and then a 29-lap race to finish it off as well. So I'm quite intrigued because the one-shot qualifying, Aidan, it's obviously, we've not really done this before in League of Europe, and as I said, I know in Division 1 it made it a bit more of a different order, but I reckon do you reckon we could see that for this one-shot qualifying?
I definitely think so. We are going to see a bit of a mix-up order. You tend to go out in one-shot qualifying with kind of worse tyre temperatures, so it's a little bit difficult to manage your tyres throughout the lap. And of course, if you do make that mistake and invalidate, you haven't got the opportunity to go out again and try again. So it's all on this one opportunity. We'll see if people are confident enough to go for a full lap at full pelt, or whether some people just have to back off to make sure they don't invalidate.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like I said, it's going to make it a bit more interesting because the people that are known for invalidating, the one that I'm actually currently watching is known for it, of June. He just riding on board with him in the house, actually sitting in second at the moment. So you only really got, as Eminem would say, you have got one shot to try and get yourself up there. And as I say, that June has invalidated on his lap. So he is not going to be able to put a good time on the board. He was sort of around where Killer was at the moment. And Killer, of course, now moving over to QVR, as a few of the other guys as well. I'm quite intrigued on how he's going to do. Same with a few of the MLE guys, Tope and Creco as well. All of those were, Creco especially, of course, leading our championship at the moment. I think can play a bit of a part in this one-shot qualifying. But at the moment, Killer is the one that is sitting on the top in that McLaren. Obviously looking to try and jump up ahead of his teammates sitting in third in that standings. As I said, Killer Blue sitting in 5th at the standings at the moment as well. Just making their way through the end of Sector 2 now and coming up towards the triple rights with about 4 more corners left to go. So we'll see how Killer does opt to take these ones, keeping it as tight as possible through those triple right-handers. And now, again, it's very easy to invalidate through that penultimate corner. Very easy to go quite wide out there. Through the final corner comes Killer and up towards the line, and it is on pole with a 33.182. Creco, our championship leader, in second with a 33.239. A few guys did get disqualified. Doom, Evans, Lix, and Flex apparently disqualified from the session for going the wrong way. So I don't know what happened with Flex there, but I think he just kind of messed it up on his lap. But it is Killer on pole and Creco lining up alongside him.
Yeah, once again, Creco at the front of the field at the end of qualifying. He's had a great start to the season. He's continued that on, and it's very close with the top 3, less than a tenth covering the top 3 in that qualifying session. But like you said, it could be a bit of a jumbled up order, and we've definitely got that with a lot of the people a bit further down you wouldn't expect. Evans obviously had a great race last time out. Before, obviously, the safety car played into his race. He's down 19th without a lap. Slash down there in 16th as well. He was running in the top 5, I think, throughout that lap before he spun late on. So, yeah, quite a few people out of position again.
Certainly is, but I'll quickly just take you through that order. So, as I say, Killer Blue on top with a 33.1, Creeko in second, Tope and Brent lining up on that second row in third and fourth, Nolan in fifth with Scream in sixth, Marcio in seventh, Ben JS in eighth, Luco 5 in ninth, RJ round like that top 10, Darry in 11th, Rick in 12th, Time in 13th, Bunty in 14th, More Games in 15th, Slash in 16th, and then, of course, as I said, our DSQers rounding out at the back of the grid, of course, being Flex, Evans, Doom, and I didn't quite catch it. I think it was Licks at the back as well. So, yeah, all of those guys, unfortunately for them, I know June, as I said, was looking pretty good with Killer throughout that entire first sector. Unfortunately, it's not paid off for him. So we'll see how it's going to go. Again, if that is what June is bringing to the table, I'm hoping we're going to see him try and make some moves up from the back end of the grid. USA, it can be relatively easy to overtake around here. There's two different DRS straights to go through. So I'd be expecting a few moves to happen, but at the same time, I'd be expecting a lot of trains to go down, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'd be expecting that as well. I think it's one of those tracks where you can overtake, but you've kind of got to prey on mistakes from other people to be able to do that, I would say, around a track like this, especially with the DRS trains that do form, as we have seen in the other divisions that have taken place so far around this track. So, yeah, I think that is definitely that's definitely going to be the case for some of these drivers going forwards. And it's a case as well as what setup people have gone for. I think this is one of the tracks where a lot of people are a bit split on what they want to do setup-wise, whether they want to go for the downforce for the first half of the lap or whether they want to go for the straight line speed for the second half of the lap. So that can definitely play a factor as well.
Yeah, no, it certainly can. And just having a look at the tyres option, because I know there's a few people in Division 1 and Division 3 went a bit of a different strategy on their tyre, but everyone in Division 2 has opted to go for the medium tyre. It's the safest bet, it's the easiest bet. So, yeah, as I said, everyone going to choose the mediums for the sprint. There is no pit stops on this sprint race, so it is just a flat-out 10-lap race to the finish line. And, of course, Killer is going to be the one taking us through that as well. But, yeah, as I said, I'm expecting a few guys at the back, you know, the likes of June, the likes of Slash, Flex as well did impress me last week at Imola to move their way up through the grid. Rick as well, I know he's not exactly a slouch in a race, so I'm hoping that he can try and make his way through the field. I'm quite intrigued to see how Nolan's going to do that. I'm not going to lie, I don't think we've really seen what Nolan can do in this division as of yet. And again, I know qualifying last week in Imola kind of proved that, you know, he was towards the top end of that. And again, unfortunately, I think a little bit of contact with Ben JS at the start, well, he ended up DNFing in the end with that before the first corner. So I think Nolan, we haven't really seen what he can do in this division yet. I think this might be the first test of what we'll see and how he can perform with the rest of the guys in this division, and just trying to line up alongside Brent, just saying, you know, I'm here, keep an eye out on behind you. So yeah, I think Nolan, for me, I think was one where we need to try and watch out for.
I think that kind of group from 5th, 6th down to 7th all are ones that we need to look out for. Like you say, Jack hasn't had the start to the season he would have wanted, even though he qualified really well in Bahrain and in Imola as well, a track he's not traditionally that great at. He's obviously not really got past lap 2 so far this season in either of the first 2 races. Scream as well. Scream's not had a great start to this season, but that's definitely Scream's highest qualifying position so far. And of course, Marcio, we haven't seen Marcio at all this season, so it'll be nice to see what he can do for his first proper race of the season.
Yeah, no, for sure. But everyone is just lining up along or onto their grid boxes now. We will just, of course, wait for Licks at the back of the grid. And Timon, who looks like he has spun as well. But both of those guys, just wait for them to line up on their grid spots, and then we can get this race underway. Luke, unfortunately, not missing his pit box, and same with Bunty, and same with Flex. So the two Aston Martins, a little bit of a disadvantage off at the start. But I said we got to Killer Blue for this race start. Looking at his nose cam annoyingly, so I don't think I'm going to get a good camera angle for this one. But we have got the 5 red lights now for the sprint race. And the lights are out, and away they go, and it looks as if Killer Blue has got on a very good start in comparison to everybody else. Pope as well, very good start, as well as Nolan already trying to line up alongside Pope. Going in towards turn number 1, Brent holding it down the inside, a little bit of free wide contact between the pair of them. Unfortunately, Brent gets past Nolan. Nolan dropping down now to 5th position. Brent now up to 4th. Ben JS and Marcio both side by side as they make their way up towards the S section now, looking very clean throughout the entirety of the S's. There's two people that are too wide. That's Evans and Rick going through the S's, and they managed to take it very cleanly in the end, but I can still see a lot of action going down towards the back end of the field. All looking very clean so far, Aiden, as Flex and More Games at the back go side by side, coming up towards the hill.
Yeah, really, really good start from Killer Blue there. I was on board with Tote for the start of that one, and Killer just disappeared off the line. He had no... Oh, further down the field, who's at the spun? That's Darry. Darry's gone round. Darry had a good launch off the line, and now Rakurik has spun in sympathy coming out of the same corner. Darry had actually a pretty decent start to this race, but that spin has dropped him all the way down to the very back of the field, and Rakurik as well now down to the back. Not something you would expect from a driver like Rakurik. Was 12th on the grid and already dropped to 16th before he then spun. So horror show of a sprint race is further up the field. The other Red Bull with Tote is under pressure now from Brent, who's trying to go down the inside and gets the move done. Lovely move there from Brent in the Ferrari, and he's up into third place. Tope down a position, just trying to see who else is making a move. Screams dropped the car. Screamers dropped the car, coming in towards the triple right-hander, and he's damaged his front wing. So it was a great qualifying, but yet again, Scream's season's just not getting off to a best start. That is pretty much his points opportunity completely out of the window for the Mercedes driver. So the first half of the lap was great. The second half of the lap, not so much, as Evans and Thyman now running side by side at the final corner. Yeah, it's a bit of a chaotic start, to say the least. One driver that's benefited quite a lot, though, from the start is Slash, up 7 places, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, yeah, Slash all the way up. Yeah, they're up into 8th already. Very good start from the Alpine driver, as well as Brent. Brent started, of course, in 5th position, now up into 3rd and up into the podium. But Killer Blue, since joining QVR, he's become a new man. He's already at 1.3 seconds out in front ahead of Creco. Brent, though, is trying to maybe try and keep himself within that podium, try and keep within the DRS, because as soon as DRS gets activated, it's going to be very difficult to get that driver out of your DRS. And hopefully, Brent, for him, can keep within the DRS of that. But yeah, a lot of contact was going on in towards the back. Rick has come in for a fresh set of soft tyres. Scream came in for a fresh set of medium tyres, which is actually for that 50% race he's going to use. So Scream already putting himself at more of a disadvantage from starting on the actual full 50% race. So very unfortunate for Scream, and again, I think points position is pretty much out of that for him as well. As a little bit further back, I'm just trying to see who is really the closest ones to look at. Flex versus Evan, for that P13 position. Just sort of keeping up alongside him. I said Flex, I know from last week in Imola, had a very good start, and all touching the back of Evans. Evans having a little bit of a slide because of that. Flex does back off with that one, but then it allows more games to go straight through, and now more games is up into 14th position. So at least capitalising on that mistake that Flex have made, more games now up into 14th position.
Yeah, pretty nice opportunistic move. I was just riding on board with Evans. He was kind of caught in an Aston Martin sandwich. He had Bunty in front of him not making the corner, and he had Flex driving too deep into the corner behind, and now Evans is going to breeze past Bunty on the run up towards turn number 1, and that's up into 12th place now. So both Alpines have gone forward so far in this sprint race. There's already Thyman with a 3-second time penalty on the inside of turn 1, interestingly, that time around on lap 3. So that could be a bit of a factor tonight. It's not a track that's really harsh on track limits. It's quite easy to stay within the lines. So yeah, a bit of an unfortunate penalty there for Thyman, as I'm looking to anybody else who is close enough to make a move. I think it's going to be Luke on the back of Ben JS is going to be the next move here. Ben JS really struggling, as he was in Imola, to keep up with the drivers in front, gets a great start, and then gets in a position that's maybe above where his pace is and starts to hold up the people behind. But I don't think with how long this back straight is that he's really going to be able to hold up Luke for that much longer down this back straight. I imagine Luke should just be able to breeze past that. Williams on the run down towards the end of the straight. The Williams still pretty fast in a straight line. We saw that in Imola, that Ben was very fast in a straight line, but didn't help through the corners. I think that may be the same again today. Luke is through. Ben then goes on to miss the corner, and that might be, it's almost an open opportunity for Slash, but Slash couldn't quite walk through the door. Was further behind Marcio after a good qualifying, who's dropped down to 9th and is now under pressure from RJ, who's trying to work his way further up the field.
Yeah, RJ just trying to put that little bit of pressure. I think it was at the end of the DRS straight as well. The MLE drivers, unfortunately, are going to be under pressure from that Williams. But from the looks of things, he's managed to hold off for him for now. However, he's lost that DRS, so it's going to make that a bit more interesting come towards the end of this sprint race, as Juma getting past Flex, as Flex going very, very slowly. I wonder if Flex has completely lost his front wing, because he's going extremely slow. Yeah. So front wing completely gone for Flex, unfortunately for him. A decent start for him. It's now turned into complete disaster. As a little bit further up the field, you've got more games versus Bunty for that P13 position, but I don't think the Irishman is going to be able to get the move done on the Aston Martin. So close to the back of that Aston Martin car, but yeah, had to back out of that one in the end. But as I said, just even going back further up, you can see Killer Blue, he's not losing any momentum whatsoever in Creco. Unfortunately for him, he's driving very well, but he just can't seem to catch up to Killer Blue. Brent is managing to stay within the DRS and Dragon Tope and Nolan along with him. So those top 5 guys, or top 4 from 2nd to 5th, all still within that little DRS train. Then Luke's sort of separating his own little DRS train, Timon separating with his own little DRS train. So 3 little different trains that we need to try and keep our eye out for. Kriko leading one, Luke leading one, and Timon leading the other one as well. Yeah, I think things are going to get a bit more interesting. Of course, it's only the sprint race. We have got 7 more laps left to go, or 6.5 laps left to go now until the end of the sprint. But I think that might be a sign of things to come as Evans gets the move done on time and goes up to P11. It's top 10 for the sprint points, so Evans needs to make up one more position.
Yeah, not looking too bad for Evans, considering that he obviously didn't set a lap time in that qualifying session, so worked his way through the field quite nicely. And Marcio and RJ are still having their little tussle, and they are actually now starting to catch this train now that Luke and Ben have been fighting a little bit. Marcio and RJ have actually been able to catch the drivers in front, so that's a train that Evans could try and latch onto the back of. As further down, Darius trying to find a way through on Bunty, who's already really low on ERS and doesn't seem to be that confident. It's not been a great race so far for the Aston Martins. Darius trying to recover, of course, from that spin earlier on, and then almost spins again at the final corner, and that allows more games through. We're just seeing more games pick up places as other people make mistakes at the moment. So yeah, more goes up into 14th, and Lix moves up into 15th as well. Lix has been pretty anonymous in this race so far. Of course, he didn't set a time in qualifying either. Had a great race last time out, but yeah, in this race so far, he's just not really been able to work his way forwards like the 2 Alpines have, for example, who are now running 8th and 11th. So yeah, a bit of an anonymous race so far, as Bunty is the next one to pick up a time penalty. And just seeing at the front of the field, Brent is now starting to struggle to keep up with Kriko. Kriko, like you said, can't close in on Killer in front, and Kriko is very close to dropping Brent. I think the second he does, Tope and Tim Felipe should be all over the back of that Ferrari.
Yeah, no, certainly could be a little bit further up though as well. Slash going for that move on Ben JS, just literally at the beginning of that DRS sector. Slash does keep the DRS. Ben does also get DRS from Luke out in front, but I think Ben's going to have to back off with that one. So Slash now up into 7th position from where he started. Is a very good sprint race for Slash now, and proving why he is, of course, one of the quickest in this division, as Doom losing 2 positions to Dari and to Lix. I think trying to go for the move at the end of the DRS straight. Dari really is struggling within this sprint race as he touches the back of that Alfa Romeo and spins him around. Unfortunately for Lix, wasn't too bad for him. He was, of course, just hanging on to the back of Bunty and More Games. More Games, in fact, actually got the move done on Bunty in the end. I saw him try and go for it in towards turn number 1, but actually got it done down that DRS straight. So, of course, now the Irishman 2 seconds up the road to try and catch up to Timon to at least maybe try and salvage points within the full 50% race. But yeah, I mean, a lot of going on within this sprint race, and we've only got 5 more laps left to go, Aiden.
Yeah, only 5 laps to go left in this sprint race. It's an interesting pace order. I wasn't expecting Killers to come in and be so fast. Of course, he had a pretty decent race the first time around in Bahrain, but that is a completely different track layout to the one we've got here at the Circuit of the Americas. So it's maybe a bit of a surprise to see Killer being so strong so far in this sprint race. We'll see if it translates into the actual race as well. But yeah, Killer looking incredibly strong in the lead of this race. One person I'm a little bit baffled by is Luke. He's just kind of in no man's land at the moment. He was another one who had a great start to the season in Bahrain, was kind of anonymous last time out in Imola, and so far in the sprint race is kind of the same as that yellow flag. I think it's for Lix, who's had a spin at the start of the second sector. Yeah, Luke had a great start to the season and was really strong in the pre-season races and was kind of tipped to be an early championship favourite, but so far in these last 2 rounds, at least, especially in this sprint race and in Imola, he's just kind of not really played a factor in the race. He's been fairly out of it so far, which is maybe a bit of a surprise to see. So yeah, that is one person we've got to keep eye on in the actual race, whether he is just now settling for 6th because you can't catch the leaders in front, whether that is just his genuine pace. And I would like to see what Sasha's going to be able to do in the proper feature race as well, now that he's been able to gain this many places in just 5 laps, really. The fact that he's been able to gain this many places could say a lot about his race later on, as Diamond has now gone for a spin. A lot of drivers struggling potentially with overheating tyres.
Yeah, as I said, 4 more laps left to go. These mediums, they do tend to drop off around sort of lap 8, lap 9. So I think we're now just starting to see a lot more people, as you said, struggling to do anything with it as time. And actually, in fact, comes into the pits, interestingly enough. So maybe going to try and go for a set of the soft tyres. At least try and nab the fastest lap. He won't get the point for it because he's not within the top 10. But at least try and get that fastest lap. And I'm surprised he did pit, because it's better to try and hold up as high as you can. So at least then you're as high as you can for the feature race. But I don't know, each to their own, I suppose. But yeah, another battle that's now starting to brew up. the one for third position. Brent now losing DRS to Creco, and Tope is all over the back of him, as that is Bunty that has spun at the well, in between the S section as well. But running on board with Tope, here we go. He's going to try and use a little bit of his DRS as well. He sees Brent is derating, so here we go. He's using that ERS now to get past the Ferrari and goes down the inside in towards the end of the DRS straight. Ben also follows it through and keeps that position up ahead of Slash. Ben keeps that 7th. Tope moves up in the 3rd position now, 1.2 seconds off of his MLE teammate. So Brent, I think, is now going to be under a bit more pressure because Nolan is all over the back of him as well.
Yeah, Nolan right there. Nolan's got a bit more ERS in his back pocket than the drivers in front of him at the moment, so he's definitely going to be a bit of a threat for these last 2 laps. I think he's just been sat in 5th place, kind of patiently waiting. We obviously seen, like I mentioned at the start of the stream, that he's not had the start of the season he would have wanted. I think he just wants to sit and pick up points so he can get his championship off the ground in some sort of way. So not really taking any risks right now, but you can see Brent is really struggling on his tyres. He's struggling now to hold on to the back of Tope now that Tope's only just passed him. So yeah, I wonder if Brent here could potentially fall out of DRS range to Tope as well, and that would just allow Felipe to just breeze on past down the back straight. So that would be another interesting one to look out for. Looking further down the field as well, Evans now completely on his own with that pit stop for Thyman, and Thyman, having now made that pit stop, has pitted onto another set of mediums. So clearly driver's not quite aware of what the tyre rules are for these sprint races, because that means he's using up his mediums for the actual feature race. And of course, as we know, the preferred strategy is probably hard medium or medium hard around this track. So yeah, Thyman, by making a pit stop, has not only compromised his grid spot for the next race, but he's also ended up putting on the wrong tyres and is now going to compromise his strategy very heavily.
Yeah, I think Scream did, as I said, did the exact same thing, as well as Lix is actually also into the pits, interestingly enough, and hopefully he does chuck on the softs. Yeah, he does. So yeah, very interesting strategies going on between those Alfa Romeo guys, but Felipe or Nolan ends up getting himself up into 4th position. In fact, him and Brent are still both side by side. Brent trying to hold it around the outside at the end of that DRS zone, but Nolan gets that move done and now up into 4th position. 2 AlphaTauris running not too badly in 4th and 6th position, as that is Scream, who's gone round at the coming up the hill, I believe that is. So yeah, very unfortunate for Scream, now down in 18th position. It's just going from bad to worse for him, for Flex, for Lix, and for Rick. As I said, all sitting down at 17th, down through to 20th position as well. But yeah, I think one person that it's actually going very nicely for is Killer. He's 3.5 seconds now out in front of Creco in this sprint race, and he hasn't really had a challenge to him at all. So I really think Killer is, I think this is Killer's to lose at this point. I don't think, even in the feature race, I don't really see Killer Blue losing this unless he loses it on his own, or there's like a safety car that comes up, which doesn't exactly help his strategy. But at the same time, I think Killer really has already gotten this wrapped up. I think we can confidently say that even for the feature race at this point. But yeah, I mean, a little bit further down from that, anything can happen between the rest of these guys. As I said, Felipe or Nolan, I know, is he's holding on to the back of these guys very nicely. The 2nd through to 4th, as Brent is dropping out of DRS from those guys as well. So 5th, 6th and 7th, all without any DRS to their name. And even Marcio as well in 9th is almost out of DRS from Slash. So a lot of guys in this sprint race really are struggling to try and keep within DRS of the car in front, interestingly enough.
Yeah, they're all derating a lot as well. There's not really many people that have got a good amount of ERS in their back pocket. The only one that is Killer in the lead of this race. He's got over half of his tank of battery, so that just further accentuates the fact that he is completely dominating this race. So yeah, it's worked beautifully so far as this race for Killer. Just looking further down the field, actually, I was riding on board with Evans. I don't know if Evans has got some sort of damage or something on his car, but his pace has really dropped off in the last couple of laps. He's now 6.3 seconds behind RJ, and More Games is right up behind him, Evans having passed More Games earlier on in the race, maybe 5 laps ago, and More Games is now re-caught. So I think Evans must have some sort of damage on that car to be that slow at this point in time. Just seeing in through that triple right-hander, you can see he's just got quite a bit of understeer. So yeah, not really looking great. And as I say that, More Games spins on his own behind him. So More Games, who was looking like he could have had an opportunity of picking up 11th place, has spun on his own. So that has at least saved Evans for the time being. He's now got Dari behind, but Dari has a time penalty. So that should at least save Evans 11th place in this race. Last lap of the race, and I think the only one at the moment that seems to be close enough to be making a move at any point here might actually be Nolan in 4th position. He's pretty close to the back of Tope. He doesn't have a lot of ERS though. I think he's relying on a mistake from the Red Bull in front. Got to look out for Marcio as well. Slash started off this sprint race really well and was gaining lots of places, but as the tyres are getting older, Slash's pace is dropping off. He's been re-overtaken by Ben, and now Marcio and RJ are on the back of him.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of, a lot of usage down in this DRS straight, and I'm just watching on board with Tope as Nolan. You can see he is derating on the back of that car, but I'm just looking at it from Tope's POV because he is all over the back of Creco now, and I don't think there's going to be any sort of move going down between them, but I can see Luke as well going for this move on Brent. Brent moving over to the left-hand side of the track, and Luke now going to the right-hand side of the track, going around the outside of Brent to take that 5th position. Very nicely done for Luke, and now 5th and 4th for the AlphaTauri pairing. Very good result for them, to say the least. So saying that, Luke has a massive bit of oversteer coming out of the double right-handers, and it's allowed Brent to go straight back through, but Luke going to try and go for a bit of a switchback coming through these triple rights. I don't think Luke is going to be able to do it. Brent's going to hold that inside through that, but I'm going to go on board with Killer Blue as he's making his way around the final corner now for the sprint race. Does take the victory in the end. 5 seconds deficit with Creco in second, Tope in third, and Nolan in fourth. So Killer once again chucking it on pole position. Creco lining up alongside him. Tope and Nolan in third and fourth. Luke and Brent with that good battle there at the end of the sprint in 5th and 6th. Luke in fact actually got back past Brent, interestingly enough, so I don't know what had happened with Brent, but yeah, Luke managed to get that position back on Brent in the end. Ben JS ended up finishing in 7th, in 8th, Marcio in 9th, RJ rounding out the top 10 and picking up the final point for the sprint race. Evans in 11th, Doom starting at the back of the grid, ended up finishing in 12th, despite I think having an early spin as well in that first lap. Dari in 13th, only just because of that penalty, ended up dropping down behind Doom. More games ended up finishing 14th in the end after that spin at the top of right-handers. Bunty in 15th, Timon in 16th, with a bit of a disadvantage with 4-lap old medium tyres. Rick is in 17th. That Scream bins it across the line on his medium tyres, but again, he was also one that pit very early on for those mediums, so he's going to be at a disadvantage as well. And Licks were just waiting for him to come across the line, as well as Flex did end up DNFing on that final lap of the race. But Killer absolutely dominated that sprint race, and I get the feeling, Aiden, like I said earlier, we're going to see the exact same. It's just who's going to line up alongside him in this podium.
Yeah, it's looking like it, isn't it? If it's just based on raw pace, then Killer's got this one pretty much wrapped up, and that's a bit of a worry as well going into future races if he's able to win a sprint race that convincingly, only 10 laps, and that's an average of at least half a second a lap faster than the entire field. So, yeah, that's a bit of a worry for the rest of this field going forward in this championship. So, yeah, great start to proceedings tonight for Killer. Creco on the podium alongside as well, continuing his strong start to the season, has been in the top 5 in every race so far. We'll see if he can keep that up in the feature race and Tope the final spot on the podium for the sprint race. Point scorers for the rest of that then are Felipe, Luke, Brent, Ben JS / Marcio and RJ are the top 10 in the end. The top 10 get points, not the top 8 like we do see in real life. It is the top 10 for League of Europe, so everybody down to RJ gets points.
Yeah, no, certainly do. So, as I said, this is the grid order for the feature race now, and I'm quite intrigued on how this is going to go. As I said, a few guys at the back, the likes of Rick, That Scream, Flex, all at the back of the grid. Doom as well, Matt, as I said, making up quite a few positions. The same with Dari. Both of these guys, you know, you wouldn't think that they're a bit of a slouch in this division. You would have thought they'd be towards the top end of this division. But yeah, down in 12th and 13th position, I think it's going to be a bit of an interesting one, to say the least. But yeah, of course, going to be getting ready to start the feature race now. Like I said, it's going to be Killer and Creco once again on that front row of the grid. It's just how is this start going to go down? Of course, we're going to have that formation lap go down, and I'm quite intrigued on who's going to be starting on what, because as I said, I think there's going to be a mix of strategies for sure, especially considering the likes of the guys towards the back end of the grid ended up pitting for a set of their medium tyres that they'd be using for this race. Not exactly the best idea to do that, but I think this could be a bit interesting for who's going to be basically starting on what, and especially for the likes of Time and for the likes of Licks, for Scream. As I said, they all put their medium tyres on. Sorry, not Licks, just Time and Scream, already putting themselves at a disadvantage by picking those medium tyres.
Yeah, big disadvantage for both of those. I think Scream may be able to just get away with it. He pitted at the end of lap 1 on the sprint race for the second set of medium compound tyres, so they won't be horribly worn for that sense. But again, it's still a disadvantage going into this race that he's going to have to try and manage. I think for the rest of the field, we'll see strategies now as we get lined up for the start of this race. And honestly, I'm not surprised with what Killer's done here. Killer's gone for the medium compound tyre on the front of the field. Tope in third has also gone for the medium compound tyre. I'm not surprised that Killer has gone for those medium compound tyres. I think he knows that no matter what he does strategy-wise, he can probably win this race on either strategy. I think it's very similar to what we saw Montana do in Division 1, where he started on the medium compound tyres. He's just got the raw speed to get the most out of those medium compound tyres at the start of this race and disappear off, so that when the mediums are better at the end, he's got enough of a buffer that he doesn't have to worry about that. So I'm not surprised to see Killer do that. I am a little bit surprised though that Taupe has followed him. I think Taupe here trying something a little bit different, trying to get the track position maybe, but we've already seen it's fairly easy to overtake around this track. And the other very interesting one you've got to say is Thyman, the only one on a set of soft compound tyres.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say that one. I'm very surprised he's decided to opt for a set of the softs. I thought he'd at least go for the hards, and then maybe go for the softs at the end because of those medium tyres that he used in that sprint race. So, yeah, I'm quite surprised that he's done that. That Scream, I think, is looking like he's going to be doing that. He's starting on a set of the hards. Lick's down in 19th, starting on a set of the medium tyres as well is a bit of an interesting one. I thought he would maybe go for a set of the hard tyres, but the Alfa Romeos looking to do something completely different from what everybody else is. More games than Bunty, the only other two also on those medium compound tyres. But yeah, I mean, I can see from Toe's point of view why you'd start on a set of mediums. I think he'd probably be expecting everybody else also to be starting on those medium tyres, especially considering that well, I mean, if you think about it, you can get the jump on everybody else. You can just sort of just drive away, try and keep up with Killer as best as you can. However, obviously that sprint race kind of proved that I think Killer is really the one to be reckoned with within this sprint race. Within this feature race. So I'm intrigued on how the rest of this is going to go down. But everyone's just sort of making their way up towards their grid spots now. Creco on those hards, Nolan on those hards, Taupe Killer on those mediums. Who's going to get the better start? Who's going to be the best one off of the line? We shall await and see, as everybody is now just lining their way up towards the back of the grid.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. As I think that is Licks that's just had another spin at the back of the field. I didn't quite see that as Taupe, who's actually cost himself big time there at the start of this race by missing his grid spot. So that could be cold tyres, unfortunately, for the Red Bull Thyma as well. On the softs, as everybody lines up at the back of the field, we're just waiting for Flex at the very back to line up into his grid spot in that Aston Martin, and we should be ready to go then. So here come the 5 red lights ahead of the drivers. It's Killer versus Creco on the front row. Who gets the best start? Lights are out and away we go, and yet again it is a great start from the McLaren of Killer, who disappears off into the distance, and it's Felipe actually from the second row of the grid that's had a really good start in the AlphaTauri, going down the inside. Is going to go up into second place potentially, could get the move done, but Taupe on the better medium compound tyres is going to drive around the outside and take the position away. But a good start there from Felipe to get ahead of Creco. Got a yellow flag, and that is June. That is out. Big crash at the back of the field. Scream involved as well. Marcio is spun around. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a VSC, and it is. There is the VSC. June and Scream's race is over and done with. Thyman's got a 5-second penalty for corner cutting and gaining a place. So carnage at the very back of the field. Scream and June involved in that one. Marcio potentially with damage. I didn't see if anybody else was involved in that one, but it looks like RJ potentially could have been, because he's down 6 places from the start.
Certainly is, and the full safety car has now actually come out as well. So we are now with a safety car, and this could make it a little bit interesting, because the guys that are on those medium tyres, Killer and Taupe, if they wanted to, realistically, they could make the pit stop. However, it's very difficult to get these hards to the end of the race from like lap number 2. So I won't be surprised if they maybe just opt to stay out, just keep that track position up ahead of them at the moment. However, Thyman on those softs, realistically, if he wanted to, can make a pit stop onto the medium tyres or onto the hard tyres, and then try and at least go a little bit further on in the race. Maybe even better for the medium tyres to try and get some moves done. Yeah, just go, as I said, make his way in, get the pit stop done, come back out and just see how he can fare on. I suppose there's no really harm in trying. I know he is getting himself a point from where he is at the moment, but yeah, it was a massive crash at the beginning of that race. I'm not too sure exactly what had happened throughout all of that, but I mean, the biggest gainers out of that were Licks and Flex at the back of the grid. I don't know if they were involved within that collision, but I definitely saw that Marcio was one of them that was involved, as yeah, Thyman, I believe, is coming into the pits. Yeah, so the Dutchman making his way in. We'll see how he fares on, or what tyres he actually goes on. I'll stick on board with him. But yeah, as I said, a good start from Flex, good start from Licks at the back of the grid. Unfortunate for RJ, he's now down in 15th position, so he must have had a bit of a bad start, as Thyman serving that 5-second penalty as well. Yeah,
7 and 5-second penalty. Smart move, obviously, to get rid of that and onto the hard. So we'll see if he can get to the end. I don't think he'll be able to get to the end personally. I think those tyres will just be past their percentage window by the end of this race. But we'll see if any other safety cars come into play, then that can bring Thyman back into this race. But yeah, other people that didn't have great starts, Brent, another one, dropped a couple of places off the start in that Ferrari down to 8th. So had a great start to the sprint and then fell backwards at the end, and not a great start to this one either. He's fallen further back than he would have liked to at this point in the race as well. I'm just looking to see at the other positions gained, who's gained the most places off the start. It is Licks and Flex from the back of the field, as you would expect, with all the carnage in front. Rakurik as well, up 5 places into 12th position. Slashia, the one that's had a good start, up 2 places in the Alpine to 6th. So yeah, interesting start to this race. Interestingly, I think this safety car plays against potentially the likes of Killer and Taupe in their strategy-wise, because they really needed the first couple of laps when the hards are at their worst to build the gap on those medium compound tyres. They needed those first few laps to be able to build that gap. They haven't been given that opportunity, and if Felipe and Quico can keep some good heat in their tyres under the safety car, they'll be in a much better working window on the safety car restart than they would have been in the first couple of laps of the race. So actually, Killer and Taupe here may have lost out a little bit just by the safety car coming out.
Yeah, no, there's definitely that opportunity. I think Nolan is in a very good spot at the moment, for sure. Thing is that these medium tyres, they can at least go a little bit further than what they were anticipating. But the same with the hards as well. I mean, the later that they can go on those hard tyres, the more fresh those mediums will be in that final stint. But again, I suppose it works vice versa with the medium tyres. The further they can go. So Nolan's out under the safety car.
What's
happening there?
I don't know. I was just looking away. I was on board with him. I was just looking away from the screen, and I've looked back, and he's in the wall. I don't know what on earth he was doing there, but for the 3rd race in a row, Nolan doesn't get to the end of lap 2. That is, I don't know if that's just him spinning up his tyres coming out of a triple right-hander under the safety car, but if that is the case, then that is a really silly mistake to throw away a 3rd place like that, trying to warm your tyres up in the middle of a corner. That is. Yeah, if that is purely on his own, what a silly mistake to be making this early in the race.
Yeah, that's... I'm speechless with that, I'm not going to lie. I'm very surprised he's done that under the safety car. He was in a prime position to potentially win this race. I mean, he was the front hard runner, so... yeah, I'm not going to lie, I'm quite speechless with that. I think that was a bit of a rookie mistake from Nolan, to say the least. But yeah, so now Creco is our leading hard runner. Luke just behind him on those hards as well, and Slash as well in 5th. So again, anything can sort of go down when the safety car does come in, which should be at the end of this lap, as everyone is already behind that safety car. But yeah, I'm just still speechless with that Nolan retirement, to be honest with you. Very, very surprised at that. But regardless, yeah, it's just... I'm sorry, that has thrown me off completely. That's completely thrown me off.
Yeah, it's completely thrown me off as well. I mean, yeah, what a bizarre way to end your race this early on as well, when that's now 3 out of 3 where we've had a crash for Nolan when he's been in a good position. So yeah, not the start to the season that they would have wanted at all. So safety car in this lap, so Killer will now take over the lead of the front of this field and see what he can do on the safety car restart. He's backing them up very early, so I'm assuming it's going to go very early. But yeah, Creco, I think, gifted a little bit of opportunity now that Nolan's out of the way. He's now the lead hard runner, and we know he's had a great start to the season. He's got great pace. He had good race in the sprint as well. So now this is Creco's opportunity to see if he can make this strategy work.
Certainly is. So we're going to wait for Killer Blue to just make his way around these triple rights, and knowing Killer, I think he'll probably go just before that final corner. Knowing what he's like, he will more than likely go for it then. So we'll see if Taupe, see if Creco, if they're able to catch when Killer is going. In fact, he's gone before the second to last corner, so he's even caught me by surprise. So yeah, Killer already going, and we are back under racing. Of course, can't overtake before the safety car line, which is at that start-finish line. So there we go. Now Killer keeping that lead in the end of that. Taupe in 2nd, Creco in 3rd, Luke in 4th, and you can see they're just sort of weaving to warm up their tyres as much as possible. Slash a little bit under pressure from Ben JS coming down in towards turn number 1. Brent going very deep in towards turn 1, but looking very clean so far. Everyone keeping it in single file line at the moment. But yeah, I mean, from the one that actually looks most under pressure is actually Luke out of that, or from that restart. Luke getting a very bad restart, and almost a second behind Creco already under this restart. And Slash, you can see, really piling that pressure on. Wants to get this move done early on. He wants to try and keep the RS with those top 4 guys, and wants to try and maybe opt to go for a move on Creco as soon as he possibly can. But to do that first, he needs to get past Luke, and Luke really, really struggling at this safety car restart.
Yeah, not got the tyres up to temperature by the looks of things. Not really the restart he would have wanted. Like you say, Evans reacted horribly to the restart. He was miles off the back of Brent. It was 1.5 seconds nearly the gap, but he's managed to catch back up to the Ferrari and is right on the back of Brent now on the run down towards the end of the straight. But he's not got a lot of straight line speed. Has the Alpine further up. The other Alpine is Sash trying to go around the outside of Luke. That's not really going to work though. Around the outside, Evans trying to do the same to Brent, but he's got the inside line for the next corner. Super deep on the brakes goes Evans into there, and he gets the move done. So Evans now up into 7th place from 11th on the grid. So as they did in the sprint race, they're marching forwards early on of the two Alpines. Whether they can sustain the pace for the whole race is another question, but they've marched their way forwards early on in this early on in the proceedings in this race. So a good start for those drivers. Just seeing anybody else who was making moves, more games now up into 10th on his medium compound tyres, but stuck mid-pack on the medium compound tyre is really not what you want to be doing on this strategy, as you would expect. Killer with the fastest lap on those medium tyres has broken DRS range to Tope, who's broken DRS range to Krico. So Krico now leading the train with Luke right behind, but not under any immediate pressure, as we've seen Luke really struggling at the safety car restart to get those tyres up to temperature.
Yeah, no, for sure as well. And I think a little bit further behind as well, RJ had a very good bad restart as well, as he's now down in 13th position, 1.3 seconds behind the Alfa Romeo of Lick. So RJ maybe needs to get a little bit more work done in those tyres, maybe just needs to heat them up a bit more, as they might be just a little bit too cold for him, to say the least. But yeah, Brent as well, really sort of struggling on these hard compound tyres. So the guys that are on these hards, I don't think they was expecting to be struggling as much as they are, but yeah, they're really struggling from that safety car restart. And you can already see Tope is in fact back within DRS of Killer, and Krico now 1.8 seconds behind his MLE teammate, as for more games trying to go for the move on Dari. Dari went a little bit wide coming in towards that DRS straight, but yeah, I think the Irishman's just going to have to remain behind the German for now. So yeah, Dari does keep that P9 position, saying that though he's trying to go a little bit defensive on the Irishman, but there's not much that more games can really do. Moves back onto the racing line. Dari keeps that P9 position. Evans now as well dropping out of DRS from BenJS. Of course, we're not going to have any DRS until the next lap, but you do want to try and keep within that 1 second, so you've at least got that comfort that you can just stick within the DRS and make sure that you're not exactly getting overtaken very easily. Because as I said, it's very easy to overtake around this track. It's just whether they have the setup to do it, and whether they're of course in the DRS to do it as well. As a bit further up is Tope. Tope has gone round, completely smashed his front wing, and is now dropping down that order. So he's running in 2nd position with Killer Blue, was catching up to Killer Blue in the end as well. And now Tope, unfortunately for him, now no front wing and into the pits a lot earlier than what he was anticipating. So now it's just allowed Killer even further of a buffer from behind, and now 3 seconds separating himself and Krico. Krico as well is doing everything he can to get Luke out of that DRS, but Luke is just managing to keep up with that, and Killer is just doing everything in his power to just try and drive away from the rest of those hard runners.
It's almost like the rest of the field wants Killer to win this race. Nobody seems to want to challenge him today, and the only ones that do seem to crash out of the race. That is a real shame for Tope. Tope's only had 1 point this entire season before this race, which is a little bit bizarre to say considering the season he had last season in Division 3. But yeah, was in a really good position today and has blown it all in his own by the looks of things. That is a real shame. Looking further down, Evans is on the back of BenJS, potentially for a move for a top 5 position. So Evans already up 5 places in this race on the hard compound tyres, and it could be 6 very soon. But BenJS, one of those ones I think that has gone for a car that's good in a straight line further back. Brent has not done that, and Dari breezes on past in that Red Bull up into 7th. So Dari, of course, recovering. Oh, as Brent has contact with more games into there, actually, into that corner. Rikurik is going to say thank you very much. That is an open door. But Brent is going to fight his Ferrari teammate here as they come through this 3rd sector. Can Brent hold on to the position? Yes, he can. And more games is actually going to go back down the inside of Rikurik and try and reclaim that 9th. But he doesn't get the traction out of the corner. Rikurik up into 9th place. So making use of that little mistake there from more games at the end of the straight. But yeah, a lot of drivers really struggling. And I don't know if Brent has some sort of damage or something, but he has really lost a lot of pace in the opening phase of this race. He has not got a lot of pace at all. Dari obviously passed him and then is already 1.5 seconds up the road. So yeah, Brent really, really struggling in this race for some reason. Yeah,
I'm not too sure what's going on with the Dutchman. I think I don't know if he's just struggling on these hard compound tyre in comparison to the mediums, but well, I think that is it's shoving that he really is struggling with that. A lot of gaps have opened up. I mean, all of the hard runners, other than Evans and Rick, are all out of DRS from each other. I mean, Luke 1.4 seconds behind Krico, Slash 1 second behind Luke, BenJS 1.2 behind Slash. I don't know what is going on with the rest of these hard runners. I think they all just can't seem to get it together. I'm saying that Slash is now actually within DRS of Luke, but I don't know if he got there within the detection zone. In fact, yes, he did. So does manage to just claw onto DRS to the back of the AlphaTauri, but yeah, I don't know what is going on. Everybody really seems to be struggling with these hard compound tyre, but I'm just watching right on board with Ariel Evans, and I think we might see a move go down towards the end of this DRS straight, as a little bit further back, Tope is spun, coming out of that pit lane and going through the S section as well on those cold, hard tyres, so it goes from bad to worse for the person that finished second place in that sprint race. So third place in that sprint race, so very unfortunate for Tobe. At least he has picked up some points today, but I don't think he's going to be picking up any points within this feature race, unfortunately for the other German as well. So yeah, down in 17th position for Tobe, but yeah, a lot of battles still going on with the rest of these guys. The hard runners, as I said, all really struggling with each other. Are we going to be seeing any moves go down very soon though?
It doesn't look like it, does it? Like you say, a lot of the hard runners don't really seem to be all that hooked up on these tyres. They don't seem to have a lot of pace at the moment. The only one that does, that's slightly out of position, is Evans. But Evans' car is so slow in a straight line that he can't make any overtakes at the moment, especially on Ben, who we know usually does have lower downforce. So Evans in 6th, you probably could say could have a run at his teammate and Luke in front if he was able to find a way past the Williams, which he can't. So he's just kind of stuck at the moment trying to wait for a move, as RJ, I think, further down in the other Williams has managed to get past Licks and up into 11th place. So he's recovering from that poor opening lap, is the Williams driver, as is Marcio behind in 13th. Obviously caught up in that first lap incident and is back up to 13th and is trying to work his way back through the field as well. So they're trying to recover from their first lap shenanigans. After all of those battles, Brent is now solid in 8th. I think one thing more than anything else that I'm completely baffled by in this race is just Rekurik's lack of speed. He obviously didn't have all that. He didn't have amazing pace in Imola, but he still picked up a decent result in Imola last time out, of course, with a podium finish. He had a really, really good race, even though he wasn't one of the fastest in the field. But today, he's just kind of anonymous. He's going to breeze past Brent in a straight line. Brent is incredibly slow in a straight line, but Rekurik is kind of nowhere near where you would expect him to be.
I was just about to say, I think it might actually be best, because I know Rick, it looked like he was much quicker than what Brent was throughout those last 2 laps, despite obviously having that battle with himself and more games. But I was really surprised that Brent didn't let Rick go sooner, because he looks a lot quicker out of the 2 Ferraris, but it just doesn't seem to be quick enough. And yeah, Rick is now, you can already see he's losing more time to Dario out in front. Dario, of course, without any DRS in front of him as well, 1.9 off of the back of Evans. But yeah, I mean, Dario's just sort of sitting in 7th position in no man's land. Rick now up into 8th, going to look to try and chase down the German. Obviously, Dario as well having a very good start. I think he started down in 13th position, now up into 7th since that beginning. So yeah, I think I don't know what is going on with the rest of these hard runners, but I just I don't think they seem to be having the best time on it. And I think Killer Blue might have already played this strategy to perfection. He's now 4.2 in front of Krico on lap number 9, and these medium runners are probably going to make a pit stop very, very soon to go to the end on those hards. It's just whether they're going to get them heated up in time, and if they're going to be able to have a better stint than what the rest of those hard runners are going to do. As Flex, interestingly enough, is the first one to pick up a 3-second time penalty on lap number 9, which I think might be a new record for Division 2.
Yeah, it's definitely a new record, isn't it? That is a lot later than it was in the sprint, but still quite early on in the race, as here comes Slash now potentially for a move on the back of Luke. But just like in the sprint, Slash is already derating very early on. Even with the derating, though, nothing Luke can do. Slash is much faster in a straight line. Breezes past down the inside on the run towards the end of the straight, although he doesn't get the car stopped in time for the corner. Misses the corner, hits the sausage curb and lets Luke back through. So I think Slash a bit over ambitious there for some reason. He had the move done before we got to the braking zone anyway, but still outbroke himself and missed the corner. So that's let Luke back through and cost the pair of them both time at this point in the race. And further back, the other Alpine of Evans still stuck behind the Williams of Ben JS, who was doing a very good job, you've got to say, in 5th place at the moment. Doesn't seem to have the raw pace of the drivers around us. Rekurik has spun. Gosh, just as we were talking about him not having that particularly good race, it's gone even worse, and he's spun completely on his own. And that has let Brent back through. What a horror show of a night so far for Rekurik, one of the drivers you would have expected to be right at the front this season. Obviously, Division 3 champion last season. Division 3 champion last season, and just nowhere at the moment. And now spinning back down to 15th and pretty much out of it, unless we have some sort of safety car. That's put Brent back up into 8th, more games back up into 9th, and RJ now back into the top 10. So, yeah, a lot of drivers that you would expect a lot more from are just really, really struggling tonight.
Yeah, they really are. I don't know what is going on with a lot of these guys. As I said, I think it is just those hard compound of tyres. I don't know what it is on this first stint, but they just don't seem to be enjoying it whatsoever. As I'm just running on board with RJ, he's all over the back of more games. As he's actually gone for another spin, has Rick, and usually Rick is probably one of the more consistent ones within a race. So for him to be spinning around twice around this circuit, I don't know what's going on with it. It just makes it a bit more interesting, to be honest with you. And I wonder if we're going to see a lot more people maybe have a few spins within this race. But looking on board with Evans, maybe trying to go for a move on Ben JS down towards the end of the DRS zone. Going to go down the inside of the Williams to get that move done. Gets the car stopped very nicely, unlike his teammate did before. Evans now up in the 5th position, 1.2 seconds off of the back of his teammate. I wonder if Slash might actually back off ever so slightly to allow Evans to get within DRS of Slash. It might be make that a bit more interesting to allow him and Ben JS to just try and maybe go for a move on Luke. He's now got both of those Alpines behind him, so Luke might be a little bit under pressure within the next coming laps. But I said we're on lap number 10 now of 28. In fact, lap number 11 of 28 is Killer Blue just crossing the line now to start that 11th lap. And I won't be surprised if we see him maybe come in at the end of this lap to go for a set of the hards to go to the end of the race. I'm surprised he actually hasn't come in a bit earlier, because those mediums do tend to die out relatively quickly. So yeah, we'll see if Killer does end up coming in at the end of this lap, as I think Rico is now starting to catch him throughout this first sector from the looks of things.
Yeah, it's kind of stagnated now, the gap about 4.5 seconds between the two of them. So now is definitely the crossover phase between the two compounded tyre. I think the good thing, though, is that those mediums don't really have a drop-off in pace. They do wear, obviously, a lot more than the hards, but they're pace-wise, they don't really have a speed drop-off. So that is why Killer is still pulling away at this point in the race. But the good thing for Kriko is that he has got a very comfortable gap over the rest of the people on the same strategy as him. Luke is now nearly 3 seconds back and still fighting with Slash. And Evans, since passing Ben JS, has actually dropped further back from his teammate, interestingly, which is not what I was expecting. So, yeah, we'll see if Slash is close enough for a move on Luke, but nowhere near close enough down the straight. We'll see what Ben JS's straight line speed is in comparison to Evans. He is a lot faster in the straight line, but not close enough to go for the move. As I think further down, I think we just saw a move from Lix on More Games, who's managed to get up into 10th, More Games down to 11th. And Marcio trying to continue his recovery back through the field, but Thymon's going to try and make it 3 wide. That was never going to work. Not on planet Earth was that ever going to work. That was a really, really weird move there from Thyman, making it 3 wide down the inside, and More Games, just the innocent party, spun out in all of that one. Yeah, that was never going to work.
I think that was also from Marcio as well. I don't know why he was trying to hold it around the outside. As Evans had actually spun through the triple right-hander. So Evans, he was making some moves up on, got up ahead of Ben JS, trying to catch up to his teammate. Now having that spin out at the triple rights, and now down into 11th position, and maybe even going to lose another position to Marcio in 12th. So very unfortunate for Evans. As Timon picks up another his first 3-second time penalty, second one of the race as well. As yeah, and in fact, yeah, Marcio and Evans still both side by side coming up towards turn number 1. I think the good thing is that Evans is that Marcio hasn't really got that much ERS to play with. Well, saying that, he's going to try and hold it down the inside in towards turn number 1. Is he going to be able to keep that move done? Marcio does tap the side of him as he oversteers, and Evans gets spun around. No front wing for Evans either, and that's just gone bad to worse for the Alpine. He's now down in 13th position with no wing and with no points. In fact, now 14th position is one that he does go past him. Killer Blue, interesting enough, still not made his way into the pits, but yeah, I mean, for Evans, it was very unfortunate for that spin originally, and now it's just gone from bad to worse. As I said, Marcio having a bit of oversteer, just tapped the back of Evans and ended up chucking him into the wall. So, yeah, very unfortunate for Evans. Hopefully he can maybe hope for a safety car that does help him recover to try and at least scrape in some points in the end. But just a thing that happened on More Games last lap. In fact, he's actually come into the pits. He's the first one to make that change on that pit stops. So he's going to try and go on these hard tyres to the end of the race. And I'm quite intrigued to see if he does make up any positions from the rest of the guys that are on the hards, as Flex and Marcio both going side by side of each other. In fact, Marcio just trying to overtake Flex, but can't seem to get that move done. Rick going past Evans as well, because Evans had no front wing on his car. He has to just sort of back off with that one. But yeah, what I was going to say was him in regards to More Games, going up the hill last lap, made a little bit of a mistake. It allowed RJ to go through, and it allowed Lix to just sort of swoop on through as well, keeping that DRS to the back of RJ, and yeah, managed to get the move done. As Lix, in fact, talking about speaking of the devil, makes his way into the pits for his stop as well.
Yeah, not a surprise to see Lix in now. Killer Blue, by the way, has stayed out for another lap, but I mean, he may as well. He is still pulling away from Kriko, so he may as well use the mediums while he's still got pace in them at the moment, as Marcio also in as well. That's a very early pit stop for Marcio onto these medium compound tyres, I would expect. Yeah, it is medium compound tyres, so that is a long way to go on those mediums for Marcio, but I mean, at this point, he may as well try something different. He's not going to get points potentially on on regular speeds. He's got to try something a little bit different to see what he can do. A lot of drivers today are really struggling to keep the car on the road, and drivers you wouldn't expect. Evans having made so many places, made 6 places in this race before that spin, then spinning completely on his own in an unforced error. We've seen Recuric spin, we've seen Taupe have a spin as well. There's just been so many drivers, top caliber drivers you would expect to be having a better race, that are just spinning through just pure mistakes. And I think the one person that's going to be the most annoyed by that Evans spin, other than Evans himself, is Ben, because Ben went through that whole battle phase with Evans to lose out to Evans, to lose time, just to watch him spin, and that's now put Ben back in the clutches of Darry, who's now looking for a run at the top 5.
Yeah, Darry, as I said, a very good race for him so far, obviously, with everybody else in front making just mistakes on their own. It's allowed Darry to just sort of stealthily make his way up the table, and is now up in the 6th position and looking to try and go for a charge on Ben JS's Killer, our race leader, now into the pits. So it's now going to allow Creeko to take our race lead and Luke to take 2nd and 3rd. So I'm quite intrigued on where Killer's actually going to come out in relation to everybody else. I reckon he'll probably be around that battle with Timon and Flex when he comes out of the pits, or might just even behind, might be just in front of Timon, shall I say. So yeah, we'll keep an eye out on that one. In fact, just looking on board with RJ, he's in fact going to come out just in front of the Williams, and hits the side of Brent. I think Brent must have picked up wing damage from that. A bit of dangerous exit out of the pits from Killer Blue, going completely wide coming out of it. Is now trying RJ trying to go around the outside of him through the S's, can't get the move done. I don't think Killer got any sort of damage from that, but Brent definitely got himself damaged through that.
Yeah, I don't think that was really fair from Killer. We know we have cold tyres coming out of the pit lane. He's on a cold set of hard compound tyres, and he's just sent it into turn 1 from a mile back from the pit lane and missed the corner completely and taken Brent with him. That's not fair, really. That's not really fair racing, unfortunately, for Brent. And that's put Brent now behind RJ and potentially with damage, like you say. So while that's helped Killer not be in traffic, that could be some sort of steward's investigation or some sort of penalty looming over Killer's head there, because that was a really, really unsafe rejoin from the pit lane from the McLaren driver. Lucky to get away with it without it being much worse than it was, but either way, yeah, not really fair racing, I would say, coming out the pit lane. But it has put him in a bunch of clean air, so that helps him at least for his strategy for the rest of this race. And now we just wait to see what Creeko's pace is when he eventually comes in for the mediums, which I would assume would be probably around lap 17. You would probably see Creeko come in for a set of medium compound tyres to take to the end of the race. As Slash picks up a time penalty, not really surprised. He's been going off the track left, right and centre as of recently. He's really struggling in those hards to keep up with Luke at the moment.
Certainly is. Darry coming into the pits for a set of the medium tyres, so might be trying to start a bit of a chain effect here. Probably going to go for the mediums to go to the end of this race, so I might make that a little bit more interesting, to say the least. We'll see what Darry ends up coming out in relation to everybody else as well. Probably, well, he's going to come out in front of Rick, so that's the main thing for him, that he does stay up ahead of the Ferrari driver. But yeah, I think Darry, in fact, in completely clear air to everybody else out in front. The only one that's a pit out in front of him is, of course, Killer Blue, and Darry on a fresh set of the medium tyres might be able to get a bit of an undercut on the rest of those guys on those hard tyres, interestingly enough.
Yeah, he could, as Brent now picks up a time penalty, unfortunately. This could be good for Darry's race to get into the top 5, of course. He was racing Ben for that 5th position before the pit stop phase. So, yeah, this could be the opportunity for Darry to get into the top 5. And if he can, and if Sash and Luke continue to struggle with their pace, he could start challenging the likes of Luke and Sash for maybe that final spot on the podium. Of course, Sash now with a time penalty kind of takes him out of the running at the moment for a podium. So Darry here, having not had the best of starts and not best of sprint races, quietly going about his business, not making any mistakes, not getting in any hard battles, is just driving his way forwards in this race and into contention, which is a really, really good result. Could be a really good result for Darry, obviously picking up as well the points for Red Bull after Taupe's mistake earlier on in this race. It's very unlike what we've seen from Darry in the past, isn't it? We've seen from Darry in the past, he's one of those drivers that performs incredibly well in qualifying and then makes mistakes in the race. It's almost like he's completely switched around. He's a completely reborn driver on this game, which is really nice to see. And now we'll see if any of the leaders do react to his pit stop. Interestingly, none of them do. So they all stay out for another lap. Darry is definitely going to at least get the undercut on Ben, and this could throw him into contention with Luke and Slash, like I said. It's just a case of whether Darry can get those hards, those mediums to the end of the race. It's going to be a bit of a push, but at least short-term gain is going to be quite big for the Red Bull driver.
Yeah, the only problem, though, is that he's going to be on much worn tyres at the end of this race, so it might be a little bit of a hindrance at the end of the race. However, if he's gotten that track position and he's got the time up ahead of him, then I don't see why that wouldn't be a problem for him. So yeah, Dari, I think, is probably pulling an absolute blinder at the moment. He's sitting in 9th position now, 4.4 seconds behind Flex out in front, and you can just see that time is just decreasing constantly. And yeah, I think Dari, I think he really is on for a podium position here. He just needs to make sure he keeps those tyres in good nick, like even towards the end of the race. It's just also when everybody else opts to pit, because I'm starting to see Luke, I think, slowly gain onto the back of Creco. I say gain, but I think the gap between them was about 3.8 on the last lap. It's now down to about 3.5, 3.4. So yeah, I think Creco just starting to struggle on these hard compounder tyres now. We might end up seeing our race leader make his way into the pits as well. Killer Blue, of course, did make his way into the pits, out of the pits now, and in 5th position, chasing down Ben JS. He's about 4 seconds now behind him, and again, another one that's just seeing that gap just coming down constantly as well. Again, those top 4 really are starting to struggle on those hard compounder tyre. Is anyone coming in? Creco is in. Luke follows him in. Slash stays out, interestingly enough. Ben JS also comes in, so Slash going for one more lap on those top 3, or those other 3 guys. So Killer Blue's now going to be promoted into 2nd position, and yeah, I'm quite intrigued on how the rest of these medium runners are going to do. If they're going to be able to catch Killer towards the end of the race. Are they going to get the jump on Dari, though? I think that's the thing we need to keep our eye out for. Dari's literally coming around the final corner now. Creco, yes, will definitely get the jump on Dari. And I think Luke will as well. Is Ben JS going to get the jump on him, though? Let's have a look. Dari is just coming up towards the turn number 1. Ben JS has just come out of the pits. They're both going to be side by side going in towards turn number 1. Ben's going to hold the inside of it. Gets the switchback done, goes Dari, and gets that move done. Very nicely done from the German. And of course, Ben on cold tyres now. He's going to have to try and get those heated up. He might end up losing out DRS to Dari. So Dari now up in the 7th position and net 4th.
Yeah, really, really good driving there from Dari to go for that earlier pit stop. Obviously, his tyre's 2 laps older, but that has got him the track position over Ben that he needed. And we know Ben is a difficult car to overtake with the straight line speed he's got. So, yeah, good move there from Dari to pit that little bit earlier and get up into what is a net 4th, like you say, with Slash coming in when Slash comes in for his pit stop. Now we've got to see what Creco can do in terms of Killer. I don't see Creco catching Killer, but if Killer gets a penalty, Creco could get within his penalty range. So that is going to be the one thing we're going to have to keep an eye out for the end of this race, if Creco can close in on the back of Killer. I think Creco would have been absolutely loving this race if Killer wasn't in it, because he is kind of dominating the rest of the field, but then you've got one other driver who's doing an even better job at the very front. So yeah, it's a little bit of a... This race has kind of come a little bit stagnant, unfortunately, in this pit stop phase. We're not seeing much. We now just got to wait and see where Slash comes out after his pit stop, as he's into the pit lane right now. So you would imagine he was right behind Luke, but we already seen that he was really struggling on his tyres. So this could put him right with Dari, and maybe opportunity for Dari to maybe DRS pass Slash at some point on the next lap.
Certainly can. Let's have a look. Creco's going to go for this move on time and coming over towards turn 1. Gets the move done in the end. Let's have a look on when Slash is going to come out in relation to Luke. Luke goes flying past the Alpine, and up into 4th position goes Luke. The undercut for the AlphaTauri has worked like a charm, and now Luke is onto the podium positions. And of course, with Slash with that penalty as well, it's going to put him even more of a hindrance, because Dari's now going to be putting him under pressure, and maybe we might even see Dari get that 4th position from Slash. Of course, Slash is going to be on cold tyres now. Dari is within DRS, and Ben has managed to get his tyres heated up, so he's managed to keep DRS as well to those other guys. Interesting one as well. RJ's up into 8th position, kept up ahead of Licks as well. RJ, I'm not going to say isn't out of it, because he's about 9 seconds behind Ben, his teammate, but RJ is in a little bit of a sweet spot at the moment. If a safety car does come out, RJ could still be within a shout of a top 5 here.
He definitely could, especially if a safety car comes out. I think at the moment 7th is the best he can really hope for if it stays like this, but considering where he was at the end of lap 1, this has been a great recovery from RJ. He was 16th at the end of the first lap of the race. So the fact that he's now running in a net 7th is a really, really good recovery from the Williams driver. Just seeing if anyone's close to a move. Ben has got those tyres up to temperature quite nicely, and is now right on the back of Dari. So I'm wondering if we're already seeing Dari suffering with those older tyres. He's just not got a lot of pace. Maybe they are overheating a little bit at this point, because Slash has already rebuilt that gap to him in front, and Ben is all over the back of Dari. So potentially that early pit stop for the Red Bull driver has not paid off, sadly. Creco fastest lap of the race, but he is 8.5 seconds behind Killer Blue. That is an unachievable gap, I think, to close down as Luke gets past Thyman. Thyman staying out, of course. He'd used both of his medium compound tyres in that race earlier on. He's pitted at the very start of this race off the softs onto the hards. I doubt he's going to be able to get to the end of this race, but he's pretty much hoping for a safety car to bring him into contention now.
Certainly is. Just run on board with RJ and Lix, both side by side through turn number 1. Lix actually got the move done on RJ going down that last DRS straight before. RJ just braking a little bit too late and made a slight mistake, so Lix ended up getting back through, or ended up getting through him. But now RJ getting that move done on Lix once again. Unfortunately for RJ though, with that tyre heat up, it's just not worked in his favour, because it was about 8 seconds behind. He's now 10 seconds behind those other guys out in front. So RJ, massive disadvantage from the rest of those guys out in front of him. The only advantage for him is that Lix is on harder, older, and has got harder and older tyres, and has got a lot less ERS in comparison to RJ, and he manages to keep within his DRS. So I think if RJ keeps in his DRS, it allows Brent to, or doesn't allow Brent, sorry, to get the move done on the Alfa Romeo. And I think Brent's really going to struggle to try and get a move done on Lix. Saying that though, he's following very, very closely behind him. Slash gets the move done on Timon for that 4th position. In fact, Timon's trying to hold it up the inside on Slash, but unfortunately for him, doesn't manage to keep that position. Timon now down into 5th, and looks like might end up losing another position very soon, as Ben JS all over the back of him for that 5th position. Of course, Timon still yet to make a pit stop. He did do those medium tyres in that sprint race, so I think Timon is going to go for a fresh set of softs to the end of the race, or might go for those medium tyres and maybe just hope that he can take them to the end of the race. It's Ben down the inside in that final corner. Timon making that mistake, going very wide, and run on board with Timon as Ben keeps that moving for 5th position. Dari, I don't know what has happened with him, but as I said, he got past Ben very quickly after that safety car, or not after safety car, sorry, after the pit stops, and is now 1.3 seconds behind him. So I don't know what is going on with Dari, and he just seems to be struggling.
I think the only explanation I can think of here for Dari is that he's just overheated his medium tyres earlier on in the stint. Obviously, he pitted at the end of lap 14, so he's doing half the race distance on these compound tyre. They can get to the end, but I think he's just overheated his tyres early on and now hasn't got the pace of the people around that are on fresher tyres. So it was worth a shot maybe for Dari, but he was already very close to the back of Ben before the pit stop phase. I don't think he needed to go for that big of an undercut. I think he could have just pitted maybe a lap before Ben, or a lap after, and he still would have been in this fight for a top 5. But I think on raw pace now, with the tyres he's on, I don't think he really has a shot now of finishing in the top 5 in this race. He is just falling further and further back as this race goes on. So yeah, I don't think that early pit stop was really worth it in the end for Dari. If he just stayed out and followed everybody else, he was well within DRS range of Ben, so he could have still fought on track for that position, but this strategy means he's not going to be able to. Looking at the front, Killer still leads. We've not really seen anything of him in this race. Same for Krico, really. We've not seen either of our top 2, really, because they've kind of been so far ahead of the rest of the field. But this is one of the rare times where we're seeing that the medium-hard strategy is actually probably the preferred one for some reason, because we're not seeing that massive pace difference between the hards and the mediums at the end of the race that we have seen at many other tracks.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And Killer, I think it's just more the case of his pace difference in comparison to Krico's. You can see, I mean, even it showed in the sprint race, Krico just couldn't keep up with Killer as Slash gets the move done on Luke towards turn 1 with that DRS of Slash now back onto the podium, just with that penalty. Is now, I mean, at least he can maybe be able to finish him 4th, because he's about 3 seconds up ahead of Ben JS, so you just got to hope he can sort of keep that gap to the Williams. But yeah, I mean, back with Krico and Killer, you saw it in the sprint, both on the same set of tyres. Killer was just much quicker in comparison. These medium tyres are going to start to go off, come around lap 25, lap 26 for Krico, so I don't think he's going to be able to keep up this pace that he's doing at the moment, because he is catching Killer at a pretty quick rate. Just Killer on his 7-lap-old hard tyres, he's going to be able to at least keep those very nicely intact, and he's going to be able to I think Killer has won this race, as you said, unless he picks up a penalty and a safety car, unless he makes a mistake of his own. I think there's only one winner, and I think it's Killer.
Yeah, Killer's got this one in the bag, hasn't he? We kind of knew it from pretty much the midpoint of the sprint race that Killer had this one in the bag, and nobody has been anywhere near him. So yeah, it's been an absolute domination tonight from Killer. So yeah, that's a real marker laid down for the rest of this championship. If this is the pace we're expecting from Killer, this could be a bit of a whitewash season if this is the pace that Killer's going to bring to every single race, unfortunately, which from a commentator's point of view isn't particularly the most enjoyable, but that is just the way it looks at the moment. Killer is just that much faster than everybody else that's taking part in this race at the moment. Just seeing a bit further down if anybody else is going for a move at the moment. Brent has recently passed Lix, but Lix is on those hards kind of keep up as there's a crash at the back actually. Bunty and Evans have somehow, fighting for 16th, have somehow come together. So Evans' race that started off so well when he was in a fight potentially for a podium position, now running in 17th, crashing at the back of the field for last place. It's been a horror show of a race, unfortunately, for Evans. And I don't know if Ricuric has had another spin, but he's now down to 15th behind Taupe, who had that crash earlier on, and quite a way behind. So I don't know if he's had another spin. As for the final points position, more games than Flex running side by side. More games holds on to that 12th for the time being, but Flex on the much fresher medium tyres will have the pace to hopefully get past. Unfortunately, though, he does have a penalty, so that could take him out of the points. Crazy, though, considering the strategy he's ended up on and the damage he got earlier on, Taupe here is still within a shot at least of getting a point at the end of this race.
Quite wild. It's quite wild that he is still within this shout. However, 16 lap old hard tyres, he's really going to struggle to get at least points. I think if he gets past more games, then I think that's a good achievement in itself. He just needs to try and keep within 3 seconds of Flex. 16 lap old hards, I think he might end up getting a puncture even on like one of the last 2 laps. So yeah, I think Taupe may need to just chill it out a little bit more if he can. Hope that he doesn't get a puncture as Flex goes down the inside of more games towards the end of that DRS straight, gets the move done, now up into those points positions. But as you said, with that penalty, I think it's really going to be difficult for Flex to get that 3 second gap. However, fresher tyres, he might be able to. We'll wait and see towards the end of the race. Yeah, I think Taupe has still got that opportunity. He just got to hope that he doesn't get a puncture. Licks as well. He's within 3 seconds of Brent, and Brent really is struggling on those medium compound of tyre. I don't know what Brent has done with those. He must have overheated them to oblivion, because he is now slower than what Licks is doing, and Licks is just keeping up with Brent, just doing the best that he can, and I hope that he can just get a jump on him. I think Brent might end up finishing in 10th. I think the guys with these penalties have really got to hope that there is no safety car. I think that's what Timon's actually waiting for, is for a safety car, because he's up in 7th position. 21 lap old hards. He didn't start on these. He started on those softs, so he might even be trying to take these hards to the end of this race. 21 laps so far on these hards. You can see how much he's struggling, because RJ is already all over the back of him, and he was about 7 seconds behind him at one point.
Yeah, he's 3.5 seconds a lap slower than the drivers around him at the moment. His time, and he is so slow in comparison to everybody else. But he is literally, like you say, just holding on, hoping something falls in his favour. But I don't think that's going to be the case, as RJ not particularly fast in a straight line compared to the Alfa Romeo, but he'll have so much more grip on the brakes. He should be able to get the move done, even if it's on traction coming out of the corner. But he just kind of lets Thyman go for that position, and RJ should get the move done maybe in towards turn number 16 is potentially what he is thinking about doing down the inside. Maybe is he going to try and switch back to the inside line? No, he's not. He's going to try and go around the outside, but that's not going to work, and he ends up missing the corner. So what looked like on paper a very easy move ended up not being a very easy move, and Thyman holds on to 7th for the time being, and that is costing RJ big time. But just look at how slow Thyman is through the triple right-hander there. Absolutely no pace whatsoever, really holding RJ up, and RJ is actually going to go for the move into the final corner and gets the move done, and should get DRS as well. So RJ up into 7th place, but you can already see that little battle that he had, 2.9 seconds off his fastest lap of the race that time around. That cost him a whole lot of time.
Yeah, I think that's to be expected as well. Timon just doing a very good job of holding him up. But yeah, surely he's got to get. Surely there's going to be a puncture inbound for the Alfa Romeo. If he does manage to take these hards to the end, that will be extremely impressive. I said that would be about 26 laps on those hard compound of tyre. I said that'll just be mighty from him. A little bit of information for the front of the grid as well. Creco is now not gaining on Killer, and in fact is losing time to Killer. So I think those medium compound tyre are starting to now drop off for the Mercedes man, and I think it is really sort of done for him as his retirement. Oh. That is Pope out of the S's. Is this now going to bring out a safety car that we were suggesting, and might end up helping Creco and Slash and Timon? So far, it doesn't look as if there's going to be any sort of safety car. And no, there's no safety car. Wow.
Well, I think Killer's very happy that that's the case. We got away with that one by the looks of things. But yeah, Taupe crashing out of the race at the very end. That is a real shame. Yeah, what a horror show, unfortunately, for Taupe, whose bad start to the season continues. Only 1 point to his name before tonight. Obviously, we'll get points for 3rd in the sprint, but that's still nowhere near where you would expect Taupe to be in this championship. So yeah, a bit of a sigh of relief there for Killer at the front of the field. Although Killer, like you say, pulling away again from Creco despite being on those hard compound tyres. I think Killer would be fine even if a safety car did come out. It's just got so much more pace than everybody else in this field at the moment that it's not really a fight no matter what tyre he's on, as Brent has got the move done on Thyman. And Thyman's going to try and re-dive Brent at the final corner. That was never going to work, and that has just allowed his Alfa Romeo teammate Lix to go right down the inside. So Lix up into 9th, Thyman down to 10th, and yeah, I think it's fair to say that Thimon's opportunity of getting points in this race are pretty much gone.
Yeah, I think, I don't think he's getting any sort of points. He is really struggling going through turn 1, and you can see that as well. Yeah, timing, I think it is pretty much done and dusted that he's not going to be getting any sort of points. Marcio and Flex are just starting to catch up to him. When I was saying that, Marcio, 12 lap odds on those medium tyres, he pit relatively early for them as well. I think it was on lap 12 or lap 13, so Marcio could be at risk of a puncture as well. I know these mediums only really tend to last about 15 odd laps, 14, 15 laps at best. So yeah, oh, there's a bit of a spin actually. That is Timon out of the race now, going up the hill as well.
There we go.
And there's the safety car. There's the full safety car that Killer was hoping that would not come out. Now, are we going to see him make a pit stop? Are we going to see anybody else maybe make a pit stop as well? We're right on board with our race leader, and he is coming in, so I'm not surprised he's coming in. It would be the best bet. As I said, it's very easy to overtake around here. Surely we're now going to see everybody else maybe make a pit stop for the soft compounder tyre. Let's have a look on what's on board with Krico, as yeah, he does come in. In fact, Slash is trying to overtake him going in towards the pit lane, interesting enough. Hopefully he didn't make any contact, but looks a bit interesting. Top 5 all in, and it's basically cemented Killer to keep the lead of that race in the end. Yeah, everybody is making their way in. Krico getting held up in the pits, interestingly enough. I wonder if he's still going to come out in front of everybody else. Yeah, no, he's come out. That's fair enough. So, yeah, Krico keeping that second position. Slash in third, Luke in fourth, BenJS in fifth, Darry in sixth. RJ's come in, Brent's come in, Lix has come in. I think, again, this has also helped RJ massively because didn't Darry have a penalty? Slash has got a penalty, so I think RJ, oh no, Darry doesn't have a penalty, sorry, but RJ, I think is still on for a top 5 finish if he can get past Darry.
Yeah, he's still got an opportunity at the top 5 now, as RJ, like you say, Slash was probably the last person that wanted to see that safety car come out, because even with that penalty, Slash was getting P4. He dropped Ben by just about 6 seconds before that safety car, so it was still a P4 on the cars for Slash, but now that is potentially him dropping down to the lower reaches of the top 10. So, yeah, that is not what he wanted to see at all. And now this is a fresh, reinvigorated opportunity for Krico to try and win this race. Killer has dominated so far, has led almost every lap by the time he came into the pit lane, and has, yeah, completely dominated proceedings tonight. Krico now has an opportunity to try and steal this race win away. He's just going to have to hope, though, for a mistake from Killer, surely, because even on raw speed, you've got to say Killer could just disappear at the front of this field. Krico's got to hope that Killer makes a mistake and he can pounce on it. I think that's really what he's going to be looking out for the rest of this race. Other than that, just trying to look further down the field at who is and who isn't in danger here. Brent and Flex in danger of losing out to More Games and Recuric now because of their penalties. So More Games and Recuric could still sneak a point in this race as it stands because of that, although the safety car is coming in at the end of this lap quite early on. So I've just got to try and catch up to the back of this queue before we get going again.
I think he will. I think he's only just come through those double rights now, whereas Killer's obviously backing up everybody as much as possible. It might actually be beneficial for Killer to actually try and keep up with the safety car, which I think he's trying to do. But it'd be beneficial for him to keep up with the safety car, so then not many more people can try and get any sort of moves done. Rick picks up a penalty under the safety car. I think just trying to push that too much to try and catch up to the back of those guys. He's now picked up that penalty himself, and now basically ruined his chance of being able to try and jump those guys with those penalties. But let's have a look and see when Killer does opt to go, as Krico was inside of him for 1 point, I think I've just seen, but Killer's now gone out of the final corner. Krico has been caught napping. Slash is now going to try and maybe go for an opportunity for a move on Krico in towards turn number 1. We've got 2 more laps of racing left to go. There's not going to be any DRS activated in these last 2 laps, so it's on pure speed as Slash has a massive oversteer moment. Luke goes past up into 3rd position. BenJS is now going to try and go for a move on Slash as well, and that has pretty much taken Slash out of this top 5 completely, as RJ now keeping to the back of Darry as well. RJ is gunning for this top 5, and you can see how much he is pushing to get this move done on Darry, but I don't think he's going to be able to get anything done at this moment. Krico still also keeping up with the back of Killer. Killer is not managed to get away as much as he would have probably hoped under this safety car restart. Krico wasn't really caught, he was caught napping at one point, but has managed to make his way back up, and is now going to try and use and burn that ERS, the same with Killer, to try and maybe see if he can maybe put under pressure for Killer Blue and go for a move in these last 2 laps. But I don't think it's going to be close enough. Don't think there's going to be any moves going down coming towards the end of the DRS zone. So yeah, everyone keeping in the same positions in that top 10, just Slash having that massive tank slap out of turn 1.
Yeah, having a tense lap, like you say, making a mistake, but obviously with that time penalty, it's not going to really impact his race any different to where he was going to be. I think he's going to drop to 8th potentially in this race behind Lix. And Lix is another one who had a horrible qualifying and not a great sprint race, who has just kept it clean, not got any penalties, and has benefited nicely from the safety car. Although Brent's trying to make a move on him into the penultimate corner and smartly bats out of that one before that ends up in an incident. So there's a yellow flag behind. That is Marcio that has spun. So Recurrent will get a point in the end. He does end up getting a point as Killer establishes himself even further at the front of the field. It's that final sector where Killer seems to be so much faster than everybody else. He's now pulled out a second on Krico and set the fastest lap in the process, as if he could get even more dominant. Tonight he has managed to do that. I think the only one now that is close enough to making a move here is RJ on the back of Dario for P6 and what would eventually be P5. He's going to have to hope for a mistake, though, from Dario, of course, with no DRS for this final lap. I think RJ is just going to have to hope that the Red Bull driver makes some sort of mistake.
Yeah, he is just trying to keep up to the back of him. Ben JS dropping out of 1 second from Slash as well. Slash now starting to pull his way back in towards the back of Luke. Again, not going to be able to get him moved on. Krico out of 1 second from Killer. So Killer really, I think, has cemented himself for this race win. They're all going to be birding going down this straight. Is anyone going to get the move done? I'm looking on board of RJ. He's using that ERS as much as he can. He's all over the back of Dari. Dari's using. They are both using. Is RJ going to go for this move down towards the end of the DRS straight? He's looking towards going in down the inside of it. He's going to go for this move down the inside. A little bit of contact between the pair of them. Dari's going to hold it around the outside on RJ. Keeps the move done for P6. And, well, for a net P5, shall I say, with Slash's penalty. Does manage to keep that position in the end. Dari is going to be able to hold on to 6th position. I'm going to go on board, though, with our race leader. He has led that from start to finish, other than when he made that pit stop onto those hard compounder tyre. But there was never a doubt from anyone that Killer was not going to win this race. He comes across the line now to take the win in the feature race with the fastest lap of the race as well. I don't think anybody's going to be able to beat that 34 that he done. Slash drops down into 7th after those penalties. Ben does end up taking 4th. Luke, as I said, on the podium with him as well. Dari in 5th, RJ in 6th, Slash in 7th, Lix in 8th, more game in 9th as well. Lix, by the way, started down and dead last and ended up finishing in 8th. So very good recovery drive from Lix, to say the least. More games in 9th, Brent in 10th, Flex in 11th. Sorry, Flex started at the very back of the grid and ended up finishing in P11 in the points. So very good drive from him. Same with Lex and more games. Rick picking up the final points position after having multiple spins within this race. Marcio in 13th. Evans spun at the final corner, reverses over the line to finish in 14th. And Bunty, unfortunately for him, just couldn't catch up after that safety car and is now going to end up finishing in 15th position out of the points for the Aston Martins. And yeah, I mean, again, I don't think there was ever a doubt in anyone's mind that Killer, even through that sprint race, that he was not going to take the win tonight, despite getting everything thrown out with him as well. I think that's all. I think that's all she wrote for that one, Aiden.
Yeah, I think that is all she wrote. Like you say, it never really looked in doubt, did it? Killer had that one in the bag from pretty much the word go, and that is a bit of a marker for the rest of the season. If that is the pace we're expecting to see from Killer going forwards, if that is the case, that is a proper marker. But again, Krico continuing his good run of form, 4th in the first race of the season, 1 last out, a 2nd place finish again today, continuing his good start to the season, picking up good points for the championship. So yeah, Krico's still doing a very good job and will still lead the championship after this race.
Yeah, no, exactly. Krico, he's now in a very nice, comfortable lead. However, Killer Blue now cements himself, I believe, in 2nd position within this title fight, and I think his teammate is still, I think, is at least 4th or 5th position. So McLaren's running really nicely. The Mercedes running even better. I think it's the battle of the season, the McLaren versus the Mercedes, and who's going to come out on top with those. Can't rule out the Red Bulls, however, they have not exactly had the best of race today. Dari, though, still did manage to finish in 5th, despite from where he started in the end, and what obviously had happened throughout all of that as well. But as I said, Killer taking the win, taking the fastest lap, getting that full 26 points, and picking up the win of the sprint. He picks up the full 36 points. There's 37 on offer, but he did pick up 36 points in the end. Krico in 2nd with Luke riding out that podium. Ben JS in 4th. Dari in 5th. RJ in 6th. Slash in 7th. Flex in 8th. More games in 9th. Brent in 10th. Flex in 11th. Rick picking up the final points position in 12th for the feature race. Marcio in 13th. Evans in 14th. Bunty in 15th. And then our DNFs of Time and Tope, Nolan, Scream, and Doom are both Scream and Doom in that first lap. Nolan under the safety car, which is still the most bizarre thing. Tope and Timon, I think, both were on the same lap as well. So, excuse me, very unfortunate circumstances for those guys. But again, Killer coming out on top. We need these top three in so we can get these interviews underway. But very good racing between all of those guys.
Yeah, very good racing between all of them. Killer, like you say, just completely dominating at the front. Didn't really have to race anybody today. He was just in a league of his own, and Kriko was in a league of his own as well, behind that as well. So, yeah, really, really interesting race. I've unfortunately got to head away before we get to these interviews, so I will sign off from here. But yeah, what a great race, and I'm looking forward to. Well, I'm not going to be here for the next couple of weeks, so I will. I'll come back for the Singapore race in 3 weeks' time, and the championship could look completely different.
Yeah, no, hopefully we'll see you very soon as well, Aiden. Obviously, thank you as always as well. But yeah, we just wait for those top three to make their way in for some podium interviews. Yeah, as I said, just from my point of view, it's a very good race to say the least. Again, I don't think there was any sort of doubt in anyone's mind. As I said, me and Aiden were even saying it. Killer obviously was going to take the win after that first, or even just through that sprint race. You could see that happen probably from a mile away. Kriko was in second. I think Killer was the domination of Kriko, and Kriko was the domination of everyone else. I think it was just who was fighting for that final podium spot. And Luke ended up finishing it in the end, and he does, I don't know if he's been able to maintain second in the championship. I will have to have a double check on that. But yeah, hopefully we'll get as I said, hopefully we'll get these guys into the Discord for podium interviews very, very soon. I will quickly just add them on the Discord for yourselves now. But yeah, I mean, as I said, it was a very, very interesting end to that race, and hopefully we see something like that next week for Miami. Again, it was a good sprint race. I've got to admit, a good way for us to do that sprint race: 1-shot qualifying, 50% sprint, and 50% race. A lot more racing on offer, to say the least. Yeah, I think we're going to be getting all of these guys in for an interview. Killer Boo is just going to be joining us very, very shortly. But as I said, next week we are, of course, around at Miami. Make sure you guys are tuning into that one. 6:30 p.m. British Standard Time for Division 1 and Division 3. Division 1 covered by James Head and our race winner that I'll be talking to very shortly of Killer Blue. And then Division 3 covered by Jess Gamer and Evil Dragon. And then Division 2 and Division 4 next week at 8:10 p.m. British Standard Time by myself, and more than likely will be with QVR Verstappen, as Aiden isn't here, as I said, for next week or for the next 2 weeks. And then Division 4 will be covered by QVR Packer and Alt Maverick as well. So make sure you guys are tuning into that. Let's get these podium interviews straight underway, and we'll start off with race winner. Killer, what a race that was from you. I'm sure that was just more of a Sunday drive for yourself.
I wish it was. The sprint was a lot more relaxing, if you can even call it that. I felt more under control in the sprint, but the Grand Prix was sweaty, literally, figuratively, like in every sense. Like, that was awful, awful, awful. I relaxed a bit when Taupe crashed, and then I started panicking again after Kriko pit, and then my heart rate went to about 300 when the safety car came out.
I was going to say that because I know when Taupe first crashed, he was probably hoping that no safety car would come out, and luckily one didn't. He's probably hoping that nobody else had ended up crashing, and unfortunately Timon did. Yeah, there's not much really to say about your race because, as I said, you was just sort of cruising at the front of the field. Was you expecting to be as dominant as you was for tonight?
Not at all. I knew I was quick because I was quick at Bahrain, and I knew I had pace at Imola, and I would had it been dry. But I wasn't expecting to Montana the field. Like, that was a complete shock to me. That in the sprint, especially in the race, I thought I'd run away a bit if I was starting on mediums and the other guys were on hards. Like, I expected that because I knew the mediums were a lot quicker at the start. But the sprint, I was shocked at. And it made me feel a lot more nervous and a lot more stressed for the actual thing, I can tell you that.
No, I can imagine, especially as you said, being so dominant within that as well. So, once again, of course, congratulations to yourself. We've got Miami next week. You're not necessarily a fan of it from what I remember, are you?
No, I do not like Miami at all. It's one of my weaker tracks because there's a few people in Discord saying killer for D1, which I'm not completely opposed to, but it would mean that I'd be starting there on one of my worst tracks, and I do think COTA was a bit fluky for me because I noticed I was watching obviously the Delta with Crico very closely, and I was gaining a lot in Sector 3, and
Yeah.
Sector 3 is very ABS-y. Sector 1, I felt like we were quite matched, and start of Sector 2 as well, but it was like from turn 12 onwards I seemed to really have the edge on Crico, and I can only assume it was ABS, but I'm not sure. Obviously I was quick, but I think I looked quicker here than I am on average.
Yeah, don't put yourself down, man. You know, you're a quick guy. You're a quick guy, so just take it and roll with it.
I can't win because either I'm too modest and I look like a sandbagger, or like I'm trying to talk myself down, or I look like I've got an ego the size of Jupiter. So I can't win in this situation. So I'll just say it was fun, and yeah.
And look forward to next week, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, nothing can be bigger than Gary's ego at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, I suppose anything that is better than that. But yeah, as I said, congratulations for yourself, picking up 36 points in total for tonight for our first of 3 sprint races throughout the season. We'll move on over to our third place finisher, as it doesn't look as if Crico is going to be joining us. But Luke, that was a good result for yourself. I don't think you was expecting to get yourself on that podium, were you?
I mean, before the sprint, I thought I might have a chance if there's a lot of crashes, but I wasn't expecting a podium. I'm just on pure pace. Like, I'll say I was 4th quickest out of the people who didn't have any incidents. And on Slacky 10 just meant I could pretty much cruise to the end.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was going to say that as well. Like, within the sprint, it just didn't look like it sort of worked out for yourself, and there were a lot of incidents that happened within that race. It said it played into your favour, which is of course good to see as well. A few battles running through the field, of course. I mean, the first thing I've got to ask: was you in a party with Nolan when he crashed under that safety car?
Yes, I was.
What was the initial reaction with that? Because I think me and Aiden, to say the least, were completely stunned that had happened.
I mean, we were just laughing for a whole minute. Like, I was quite lucky the safety car wasn't coming in then, because I probably would have spun right afterwards, just because I can barely keep a straight face. But he said in the party that he was going to get some temperature into his tires, and then 2 seconds later he just spun. But he was helpful as well. Like, after he retired, he stayed in the party and he kept updating me on Slack of the RS, and
yeah, no, that's fine. No worries at all. So, yeah, as I said, I know it was a good recovery from yourself in the end. Obviously, as I said, podium around COTA. Yeah, you've done a very good job of that, to say the least. Of course, we are going to Miami next week. I know where we've done a couple of 50%ers with yourself. I know it's a track that I would like to say reasonably quick at. Are you looking to try and get yourself back onto that top step of the podium and hopefully try and take this championship lead from Crico next week?
I mean, it would be nice. I mean, I think I preferred it a lot more pre-patch than I do now. But I think with how close the walls are, a lot of people are going to have incidents, and I think I'm one of the more consistent drivers who can keep out the walls. So I think I do have a good chance.
Yeah, no, that is for certain as well. Well, as I said, congratulations for 3rd place for tonight. And yeah, as I said, hopefully we'll see both of you guys for next week as well. But that rounds that out for Division 2. As I said, for round number 3, around the Austin Circuit of the Americas. As I said, thank you to everybody that has tuned in for tonight. Make sure you guys do catch us next week for round number 4, around the Miami International Circuit.